Hello, hello, good morning. Hi, Michael. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for saying welcome or hello to Vincent as well, my kitty cat. I don't know where he is. I think he's outside. Not outside. Like we have like a catio that I built. I think I showed that once. Today's Friday, July 24th, and I'm starting a little bit late. It's like noon right now, and I've been playing around with stream stuff as well. Second day on this painting, which is going to be cool. It's all set up. I believe all my paint up here is pretty much dry. And so I'll have to replace that. But before I get into that, what I want to talk about today is the next steps on this painting and how I'm kind of deciding what the next steps on this painting is going to be. And that is informed upon previous paintings today. And I'm going to talk about tracking your work, logging your work, finding some way to take a photo of it, maybe write some notes with it as well. But even just something as quick as, just taking photos and just keeping it on your phone, right? I think is really important because we can look back at those days, the progress through the paintings, and get a better understanding of what was going on that day, what was happening with that painting, and, move forward with that, especially previous paintings. So I'm going to show my screen. This is my website here. I just posted, not my latest painting because it's still drying, still needs to get varnish, and I varnish before I take photos and before I put them on my website. But I want to look at the past few paintings that I've done, and not in the sense of the finished product, but the process. And one thing that I do on my website here, if you go into any of my paintings, of course you could buy my paintings, and I don't need to get into that, but you could look at my paintings here, and when you scroll down, it'll have like creation posts associated with it. Like, for instance, this painting just took 2 days to paint it, which was actually pretty cool. I didn't realize that I got it done so quickly. But the great thing about what I'm doing on my website, and you can do more simply in other ways. Hello, Omar, welcome. Is just tracking and seeing what we put down or what I put down in each kind of session and what I was doing at that point. And I make notes on my website or in Google Docs before then. But I'm going to use this today. I'm going to use the information from my previous paintings to inform this painting here and the next steps that I want to take on it. What that allows for us to do, if we have some way of, if we have tracked the past painting, usually, I have multiple sessions on these paintings. This is my daily art page, where it goes through all the sessions. Like, for instance, the last painting we did, which was called Enough, 14 days it took to do this one. And I see the struggle, I see the problems, I see the issues. I can see through these visual cues all the things that I had to work through in order to get this painting to look the way I wanted to look. And there's like so much information. There's a tremendous amount of information. I can't keep that in my head. I know there's probably a lot of people that can, but I can't. I can't keep that in my head. So when I'm questioning myself, when I'm looking at my current painting, this one, I'm questioning, okay, where's the next step on this? I've drawn it out. We spent one session just getting the drawing of this pretty darn close. I'm really happy with where the drawing is right now, but what's the next step? And I feel like I'm always asking that, like, what do I do next? Like, what is the next process? Because I'm always from painting to painting and painting. And we have all this information within us that we build up as we go through all of these paintings, right? And we can utilize that information to further our next painting. Like, we kind of have this idea. We know where we're at on a broad level as artists. We know that we're using a certain palette. We know that we're working with figures. Maybe we're focusing on compressing our value ranges for these next few paintings, or focusing on like being expressive while trying to hold on to exactness within the drawing. These kind of things, like this kind of broad idea of, the ideas that I'm working with. But there's all kinds of stuff that I forget about. For example, this painting here, Luminous, as I'm looking at these, the daily like movement through this, like I started this on June 19th in the stream. I remember now that, I had to redraw this 3 times. I drew it on the back, flipped it over, drew it a second time, and then did a bunch of correction on that drawing. Had a lot of problems with that. Much different than this painting today that we worked on, because I'm drawing this out in paint very lightly. And for this painting here called Luminous, I drew out in graphite. So the difference was in that I remember why I did that. And I remember the problems with it, specifically on the white part of the hand that I wanted to leave a lot of the paper showing through. I ran into a lot of that graphite showing, when I didn't want it to show. Now, this painting, Let Go, let's go into the bigger one. Kind of the bigger view of this, somewhat bigger view of this, this image. Maybe I can just zoom in. There we go. This is the first day on this painting. Boy, I really just like went at it, right? Just really chunked in a lot of basic shapes within this painting. And then I remember that I started very detailed. Like this was all about being very detailed within like a very specific part of the painting after I set up some generalizations within it. So remembering that, and I'm thinking, I know I did some drawing on this painting. I can see some drawing with the brush at the beginning to establish location, very similar to this one. I loved how this painting turned out. So maybe I'll do the same thing, like going to bigger shapes, really expressively to get a lot of paint down quickly in a session, and then move right into detail. I really like that idea, kind of a very generalized block in and then right into detail. Now, the interesting thing about it, on the next painting, Enough, which we just finished a few days ago, I started in a similar way within this painting, and I know I ran into a bunch of issues. So it didn't work here. You can see that within this one, I'm compressing value ranges. The drawing is very complex. That's something I'm running into a lot, is complex drawing and having to like really focus on that and get the initial things down. And I remember I went into this hand on the second session and then basically redid it on the third session. Didn't like it at all. Turned the painting upside down to focus on basic shapes, just focused on bigger shapes. And if you can notice, when we're looking at this day here on this painting, hopefully you can see on the far left here, it's looking very close to the first day on the Let Go painting. After this stage, I remember on July 6th, now that I'm looking at this, after this stage, this painting started coming together. How broad that is, just big shapes, big generalized shapes, focusing on that. And then I think, let's see, what was the next session? Yeah, I started into detail right after that. So went right into detail within the focal point right after that. So I wanted to run through this idea, this kind of way of thinking where I'm utilizing the previous sessions that I've tracked on my website, and I was just looking mostly at the images. I didn't look at the notes. That really kind of got things going in my brain. And I've learned from the last 2 paintings, maybe 3 paintings, of what to do, what not to do, reminding myself of that. It's given me direction for this painting today. And that's what we're going to do. Now that I have the drawing established, okay, it's looking pretty good. It's giving me an idea of where to place all the major things, Let's, be expressive. Really block this thing in. Still thinking about drawing, because I'm thinking expressiveness on this side and then also exactness, and trying to marry those two opposites together. Find the balance between the two, okay? So let's do that. How are we going to set it up? Yeah, I think I gave a pretty good idea of how we're going to do that. Figure in Nature 3 is really something. Oh, you like that one? I think, which one is that one? Yeah, I'm really happy with that painting. Really happy with that painting. I was happy with just how simply I put it down. I actually got it framed up behind me. It's going to go into a show soon. Great stuff. Thank you, Slipknot, and welcome. Hi, Chris. Welcome, Chris. It's like I'm saying hello to myself. Oh, shouldn't have done that. Okay. So to start out today, as I'm getting things together still, that's what we're going to do on the painting. But it's always a big but in my way here today. Wow, that's really thick. So I had a couple days away from painting, and that's dry. What about my white? It's got too much yellow in it. The red, the CAD red. Oh, yeah, that's too thick. I had a couple days away from painting, and the blue's good. That is definitely too dry, and the black is too thick as well. So I'm going to be taking basically all this paint off except for the blue. Now, you could mine a bunch of paint out of this, okay, if you wanted to do that. And paint, if it's thick on your palette, it can sit for days and days. And then, it will skin over, then you open up, and then you pull some of that nice paint out, and you could use that if you want. If you use expensive paint, that's what I would be doing. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I need to cover up my palette with something, so the air doesn't hit it as much, so I can save some of that paint. But I intentionally choose the least expensive paints, not the super, super cheap, Winsor Newton, Winton's, Phoenix Artist Oils. I got a couple of more expensive paints in here, but it's okay. Just so I don't worry about it. I don't have to worry about trying to save all that paint, because that does affect how you paint if you're being very timid with how much paint you put down. And I know one thing that I need to do better is paint thicker, put more paint in my brush, put more on the paper, the canvas, whatever. And I got paint on me. I hate that. I don't like getting paint on me. I'm weird not weird. That's my thing. I don't like getting it on my hands. If I get it in my hands, within moments, it's going to be it's already on this bag here with my paints on it. Then it's going to be on my face because I got an itch. Then it's going to be on the mic, and it's going to be everywhere. So this is 6x9. Good question, Chris. 6x9, and on 140 pound hot press watercolor paper, because I like the brush strokes, every little kind of indication of the hairs of the brush. I want to see all of that on my painting when I paint. And so I choose very smooth surfaces to do that. And if I don't choose a very smooth surface, I'll usually do coats of some kind of gesso or whatever, and then sand in between to get it smooth. So this is the super smooth hot press watercolor paper with PBA sizing by Gamblin. 2 coats on the front, 1 coat on the back. The coat on the back is, yes, it protects the paper, but the best thing about that is it keeps the paper a little bit more flat. You can see it's still kind of wavy. Whenever you put anything wet on paper, it's going to bow a bit. And I'm almost done with this tube of yellow ochre. What's funny? I was thinking about this the other day. we tend to think about paint being very expensive, right? I remember when I bought this tube of Rembrandt paint, which was expensive. It was very expensive because I bought it in Hawaii when we were living there, probably about 2.5 years ago. And of course, I don't use blue very often because I'm in, the Zorn palette. But it's lasting 2.5 years. And I know this Winton Cadmium Red, and I use the Winsor or the Zorn palette, which is titanium white, yellow ochre, cad red, and black most of the time. This is just as old, like two years old, probably, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that. But we tend to complain about how expensive oil paint is. But then we kind of forget like how long it lasts. And of course, that depends on how you paint. Like if you're putting like tremendous impasto like all over the place on your painting, like super thick paint, it's not going to last as long. But the great thing about it, like I just recently got this cadmium red hue, and I was just on dickblick.com, and I like shopping from Dick Blick. You can shop wherever you want. But this was like $5 for this tube, which is wonderful. What coating am I using? Oh, it's PVA Sizing by Gamblin. PVA Size. I really like the PVA Size because it keeps the paper really smooth. Oh, I forgot to put out my brighter yellow. It keeps the paper really smooth because it has the viscosity of milk. That's the viscosity of the PVA sizing, so it doesn't add any texture to the paper. I used to use, and I still have it, and I use it sometimes, the GAC 100, which is a clear acrylic medium. And that's great if like you draw out in graphite on your paper, then you can go over it with a clear acrylic medium or the PVA size. That would work just as well. But the GAC 100 is a lot thicker, and you get like brush strokes on there. Again, I want the super like non-texture because I want to see every little hair that accidentally hits the surface of the brushes that I'm using. And I think I'm going to also use some alizarin on this as well, but I need to be very careful with this alizarin. The alizarin I got is from M. Graham, which is a professional paint. It's not a student grade paint. And so the pigment load is a lot greater with M. Graham, even though I complain about M. Graham all the time. So this is my M. Graham alizarin crimson, but I complain about it all the time because every time I open it up, at the very top of the tube is a bunch of separated oil. And if I don't put it on my paper towel first and soak up all that extra oil, it's just going to slide down my vertical palette. But I'm going to use a little bit of this today, or on this painting, because I've noticed this color, this kind of cooler, closer to blue red alizarin, works really well for a lot of the subject matter where it's Caucasian skin in look how messy that is at the top. I mean, oh my gosh, you're going to get paint everywhere with this thing. The alizarin color really helps with Caucasian skin and sunlight, and direct sunlight. For me, I mean, that's, a choice we kind of make. It's not a formula. I'd like to stay away from formulas. Oof, I'm going to have to put this somewhere so it doesn't get on my other paint tubes. Okay. We're all laid out. Now let's get to it. Bigger brush. Thinking expressiveness, okay? We're thinking expression and accuracy all at once, which is hard. It's very hard. It scares me to think about throwing a bunch of paint down on here and killing the drawing that I just put down. Hey, Cookie Monster, welcome. I used baby wet wipes to clean, and it's great. Oh, that's a good idea. Something with like a little bit of soap in it. Yeah. I might have to get some of those. Keep my hands clean of any paint. because that's how it starts. You get a little bit on your finger, and then it goes down the side of your brush, and then it's on your mouth, and then it's everywhere. So super fast. Okay. So I'm looking at, hopefully you can see the reference. Yeah. The shadow that starts underneath the brow here, I got the 2 points of the brow down. That shadow shape is just beautiful. And this is a very blown out image. I want to start there, but before I do that, I also want to establish my lightest light, my darkest dark, which is going to be away from black. We're not going to go crazy black on that. Like, for instance, right in the mouth here, where light isn't reaching, is probably like my darkest darks. There's a bit down here in the blue, but we're going to bring it up a bit. So I will begin with black, but I'm also going to bring that value up a lot as well. I just have to figure out where or what I'm going to use to bring that value up. I still want it to be kind of in that red zone, a very bluish red there. If I add, now these are the only, I could add CAD red to it, it'll get 2 red to bring that value up, but I have, you know, these 3 colors to add to that to bring the value up. Now I could add yellow ochre, but that's going to bring the saturation down a little bit. I kind of want to keep that saturation. This will bring the saturation down. This will not. Let's try yellow. I would usually never use this yellow, but yeah, there we go. So everything that I wanted to talk about that was part of like the thumbnail and the title of this video, like I've talked about, like it was pretty simple. Basically keeping track, you know, just quickly taking a picture, like, okay, I'm done with today's session. Take a photo real quick. And then keep it on your phone or upload it somewhere. I would say, I would always suggest, you know, being a developer for years, backing up data is super important to me. I'm being too exact. I need to just throw it down and be a little bit more brave on this. So there we go. It's still a little lighter than I want. I'm going to bring some white in. Oof, more white, more white. Now, at these beginning stages, the one thing that I know, here's a tip. I'm working on white, okay? Even the titanium white, the lightest value that I have, if I put that on here, it's going to be a little bit darker than the white of this paper. So everything else, like the relative idea of all the other colors that go down are going to feel a lot darker than they really are. And this is kind of why I have a gray palette. You see how light that feels there? It feels a lot brighter here on the gray palette, that relative value range. And then when we put it on the paper, it's super dark looking. So I have to think about like that transition between the two and know that, hey, yeah, that looks pretty dark right now, but I'll probably end up darkening it up later. But I want to establish at the very beginning this limit of the brightest bright and limit of the darkest dark. And I want to compress that a little bit. Actually, I'm not going to compress the light side. It's going to be the paper, as bright as we can get. I'm really pushing with that blown out image. I really want to pull that in. You sure this is 6x9? Yeah. Here, I'll show you. It's a good question, Chris. So 6 there. And then it'd be funny if I was wrong. I'm like, no, it's a little tiny bit less than 9, but 6x9, yeah. Yeah, because I'm using 9x12 sheets of paper and I cut them in half, which equals 6x9. But we want to compress that. We want to not, and this is not really a rule, but just something to think about when you're painting. But I tend to not express my full range of value at the very beginning of the painting. And I want to have that extra like oomph at the end. Like if I need to go a little bit further into white or a little bit further into a darker black, I can hold that to the end. So I'm actively thinking about all the values as I put it down to the painting, and I'm compressing a little bit. Hopefully you guys understand what I mean when I say compressing the value range. Let me show you in a visual way, because this is important. It's really, I think, as far as value is concerned, something that we really, it's super helpful to think about. I mean, this is covered in dust, but you'll be able to see. So this is my lightest light. This is titanium white straight out of the tube. We are going to stay there. So I've already expressed my limit of white. Like I can't get any brighter than that. So I have to know that. If I start making other values too light, I need to make that lighter at the end, I have no place to go, right? But what I can do, like this is, it's got a bunch of dust on it. This is the blackest black, but I'm not going to paint that on here yet. I want to reserve this value and maybe this value for much later in the painting. So let's keep every color that I mix up around this value range. And the cool thing about it is when you make up one of these quick things, these quick little value charts, you can do this kind of stuff where you just pop it on there. Oh yeah, I'm way up here in this value range. I could probably get a lot darker later on. So if I say that, this reddish color, where is this at? This is going to be maybe right there. Yeah. So if I say like, these are my two darkest darks here on my palette, now I'm in a relative range here within my palette, and every other color I mix up, I can test with these two colors here and make sure that it's lighter than that, right? Because we've established that darkest dark. We've established not only where that is, but also we brought it up a level, okay? So we made it a little bit lighter. This is giving me my range for the rest of my mixtures. I can't get lighter than white or the paper. Okay, we've already expressed that to the maximum. But whenever I mix up, let's say the next darkest areas, which is going to be these wonderful dark colors within the eyes. It's fairly neutralized, a little bit closer to red rather than blue. I'm going to pick out this black right here, and I know right away, this is too dark, because it's comparatively too dark next to these two colors, and those are there. So I need to lighten it up. Oof, boy, that white really killed there. That white's a Williamsburg white, so it's also a professional tube. And so it's going to be, have a lot more pigment in it, a higher pigment load. I'm just making a bit of mud here. It's intentional. I want neutralized color. When I say mud, it means neutralization. Michael says, try Bibby Wet Wipes, Chris. It's amazing to clean the palette, your hands, the knife, and the brushes. Very easy and fast. Thank you. Hi, Dennis. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Running a little bit slow today. A little bit slow. I tell you what, like the heat here has been really affecting us. Okay. So I know that this value is going to be really good because I got the color that I want. It's not that red. It's not that blue. It's more gray. And it's right around those darkest darks because I've compared it here. So there's no more guessing on that, right? I can put it down on my palette or my painting, very confidently now. All I have to worry about at this point with this little area, these touches of darkness underneath the eyes, like where the eyes are, all I have to worry about then is just the drawing. And then I still want to be, because I'm thinking about expressiveness, I'm throwing this down pretty quickly. I'm going outside the drawing a little bit, but thinking about that. And the great thing about, doing this, thinking about value in this way, when we're moving through things, now I can look at my reference, right? And I can see this is the darkest dark. And then if I move in the mouth, if I move away from this and I go, oh, it's pretty dark in the nostrils and underneath the nose, but not near as dark as that. Well, I have that red already mixed up. So what I can do, I know that under the nostrils is a little bit more saturated, but it needs to be much lighter than what I just put down. So this is all about organizing your palette, understanding where your colors are that you just mixed up, how they fit within the painting, As you move through your painting, yes, it's going to get confused. You're going to pull from those mixtures in some places, and other things. And eventually you'll go, okay, I'm confused on where everything is. And then maybe start over on your palette. That's also, a possibility. But you can do things like this where you're actually painting the painting on your palette first before you're putting it down on the canvas. Hopefully that makes sense. Try to explain things with as much words as I can, and hopefully a little bit resonates with someone, and that would be good. And all of this, all that we're doing here is just trying to get close, We're still like in this relative zone where everything's right next to white, okay? And so the relative colors that we're looking at are going to be a little bit off because, the white is not helping us. It is not helping us at all. I want that white. That's intentional. I do want it because I like transparency within these paintings and using the white of the canvas for that. It's kind of like when you're painting with watercolor, you use the white of the paper to inform everything else. I'm moving in a completely different direction right now. So, like I said, I was doing all that with value, okay? We were just thinking about value, somewhat in coloration, like warmer, cooler. This is very warm. And then we go to blue over here because it's a blue shirt. So just temperature, value and temperature. Now I want to establish saturation, okay? So we look at value on this kind of spectrum, from A to B, from white to black. We can look at saturation on a spectrum from supersaturated to neutralized, right? And what I like to do is look at the most saturated things. I want to get this crazy orange in here. Supersaturation. That's as probably as saturated color as I can get. And right in this ear, that's where the saturation is. And then that is repeated a bit darker here, but I'm going to throw it down real quick. Right in the lips, right in the edge, right before the lips turn into shadow there. A little bit on this finger, maybe bump up a little bit in that shadow. Just putting some little notes down here. I'm taking notes while painting the painting. Okay. Yeah, and even this area gets a little saturated, like all in there. So we're establishing like this block in, right? Some ideas of what's down. I just established where the most saturated places are on the painting from what I see in the reference. I love that there's a little bit of like crazy saturation right at the edge of this eye. I don't know if you can see that. Let me make it bigger. Right at the edge of that left eye, you see that saturation? Oh, it's gorgeous. Oof. Beautiful. This can't be 6x9. I can fit the head in. I can't fit the head in 6 inches. I've painted small for years, Chris. I've painted very small. I mean, you can see like in relation to my hand how big this is, right? So I'm used to, getting in there with a bigger brush or something a little bit larger and utilizing the edge of the brush to make it a little bit smaller. I like smaller. It's intentional. Not only can I get through paintings a little bit faster, not like the last one, which took forever, but it kind of forces me to be a bit more expressive with my brushwork. Like, a small brush like this one could be a whole finger in just one stroke, or half of a hand, or a big portion of the face put down in like 1 or 2 strokes. It also uses up less paint too. So there's a lot of good to it, a lot of difference. The problem with that is if anybody challenged me to paint on a bigger painting, it would be a lot harder for me because I'm not used to it. You know, it's been a while since I've painted like expressively with really big brushes. Like the biggest brush I have here is not very big at all. Okay. Yep, 6x9. You know what painting I like of yours a lot is the one you call On Water about having lost our soft edges. I'm trying to remember that painting. But thank you for the comment. On Water. Now I'm interested. I want to see that painting because as soon as I see, probably, maybe, if I see the visual of it, I think, I'm going to show my screen as I go through it, might as well. I think as soon as I see it, maybe I'll remember everything. I'm looking for water, so hopefully it's on water. I mean, I titled it On Water, and I know that I'm very literal when I title things. And I'm definitely looking for a distraction today. My energy level is not here today. It's not the best. Oh, that's Marisulka series. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Pedestal. Oh, I wonder how far back it is. It's a series of hunters. I really had a lot of fun with those. Oh, this one. Yeah. Okay. See, man, as soon as I see that now, I'm like, okay, I remember. And I remember talking about that one, about, trying to express everything as softly as I could. Back, kind of what I'm doing right now, really kind of struggling with that or trying to figure out movements through a painting as simply as possible. It's not easy. I love it. I love the way it looks. I have a lot of friends locally. Well, some friends locally. I'm not that popular. And one friend in particular, Pam. Hello, Pam. You're awesome. She paints very detailed, loves the crazy detail. And I think it's fantastic. I love her paintings, the way that she paints. And it's great. But I mean, I am just entranced by simplicity, how simple things can be done with just a few brushstrokes. And that's what I'm entranced by. But I'm glad you like it, Dennis. Thank you so much. I just like everything about the paint application, the color. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. It is very, very bright. And I'm glad you're looking back and you're talking about one of those paintings because it fits perfectly with what I'm trying to really talk about today, off and on, about this idea of tracking our work and how it could be so important for every painting we do. I need to do it all the time. I'm afraid to put these brushstrokes down. That's why I'm sitting here just mixing up a bunch of gray. And I don't want it that gray. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not thinking straight on that color. I want to put down something expressive here, but there's some fear attached to that, because I'm trying to keep the drawing where it's at. That's the one thing. Like, if we can draw this really well, I want that more cool, keep it bright. Ooh, that's like a crazy purple. That's a bit too cool. Looking back at all the things that we've done, I think it can help me even through this little bit of fear that I'm having because I've painted things expressively. I can think back to those paintings and see them as paintings that, yeah, maybe I put down a couple things that were not in the right place, but I was able to get it back. I was able to scrape things around. So let's go for it. Got to pump myself up. It still needs to be warmer. No, that's good. Just go for it, Chris. You can fix that color. Oof. Yeah, this is what I want to do. Okay. This is helping. Okay, that one wasn't so good. See, I got a bit too crazy there. There's a change in direction that I did not get. But look at that, I can scrape it right back. There's a little bit of that blue left, which is not good. Yeah, this is definitely not like Yupo paper. Like, this is very non-absorbent ground on this paper, but man, the Yupo paper, oof, I could scrape back to just plain white. It's like painting on plastic. Dries wonderfully and everything, but it's like painting on plastic. Okay, I'm going to go over the eye. I can plan these strokes out a little bit better. Down a little bit too far on that one. Lighter. Needs to go a little bit lighter over here. And then I just realized this green background that I wasn't even thinking about. Like, my entire brain was just all about the face. So there's certain shapes that I feel are going to be very important to talk about. Oh, see, that was good. That little mark was really good. That talk about the form of this head. And I can paint expressively and see in some places, okay, that went out of place. It left the structure of that nose behind. We need to recover that edge and that shape. And it feels good to paint this way. It feels really good to paint this way. Krista, hi, sorry, I'm running behind. You're never late. It's perfect timing. I'll catch the beginning later. No apologies. It's all good. I do think you want to be here on Sunday. What am I doing? Talking to everybody really on this one. I need to look at my calendar. I'm trying to use my mouse with my left hand. So Sundays are the days when I'm going to be doing my drawing course. And this is the beginning drawing course for painters. 1.2 is Sunday. This Sunday the 26th. I'm going to be doing it at 1 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. -600 UTC, if you want to be exact. So just letting you know on that. And of course, you can catch that because, later, because it will be out there. But for commentary and everything, you want to show up for the stream for that. That's the only thing that I would urge, maybe, if you want to catch it, to be on time for, Krista. That way you can check it out during the stream, and then also in the Painter's Path, what you signed up for. Thank you again for that. Dennis, I've struggled tremendously with the fear of painting. Yeah. I talked about this a couple times where, you guys are watching me paint, okay? And it could be boring to a lot of people that are watching this. Oh, this underside of the glass is going up the nose. Oh my goodness. It could be boring to watch, right? But in my head right now is a lot of anxiety. Like, oh my gosh, this stroke. Oh, it went down good. Oh, yay. So it's like a roller coaster of emotion going on. But for you guys, it's like you don't have as much skin in the game, I guess. Is a terrible way of putting that, but you know what I mean. So it's a little bit easier. And I always think about that in that process. But there's a lot of fear and anxiety that can come through this whole painting process, because we want to do everything so well. And that's why, I was thinking about, I'm so glad, Dennis, you pointed out that painting. I remember that painting now because I was doing that thing where, you dip into your brain a little bit and you say, you know what? I don't really care about this painting that much. You do care about it. Like, we'll always care about where it's going to go, But there's also this kind of thing where we're like, okay, if it happens terribly, if it just doesn't go well, that's fine. I got another, hopefully, few thousand paintings in me, right? So we kind of toe that line a little bit of like, it's fine if it doesn't go down right. It's fine if it doesn't happen right. It doesn't hit in the right place that I want. It's okay. I can do another painting. And then I think, okay, past paintings, I've done this before. I've been able to recover bad brushstrokes. I think what is important with that when I'm thinking this way, when I'm thinking, okay, I can put it down and recover it, that I also need to be watchful, mindful of everything I put down, because if I put down 50 brushstrokes and then the second one out of that set was bad, I'm way beyond it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to repaint a bunch to catch that. So there's a lot of like focus within this too. A lot of this is really seeing what you're doing and understanding, or at least watching for, if the stroke that you made was where it needed to go or where it didn't need to go. So there's a lot of that. I love hearing old accounts of how John Singer Sargent painted. Sargent is one of those artists that, and I'll get to your comments in a second. Sargent is one of those artists that people look up to like so much because of his brushwork. I mean, it was all about expressive brushwork as simply as he could do. And when you hear old accounts of how he painted, it was one of these things where he's watching every single stroke. If it didn't go down right, scrape it off. If the whole head wasn't painted perfectly with all the strokes lining up exactly where he wanted, he would scrape the whole head off, do it again. There's one account of him repainting a head like 26 times to get the strokes the way he wanted. Like, it wasn't like just slapdash. It was really focused. Yeah. So I think that focus helps. Go for it, Chris. You can do it. I think I'm doing it. Thank you, Cookie. I need to look at the comments more often so I can feel that energy you're sending my way. I appreciate it. Dennis says, even knowing something can always be changed when painting with oils, I just struggle with making decisions and committing. Yeah. Yeah. I feel you on that. I think everybody here does. I think everybody's like listening to that, Dennis, and going, yep, I understand. We're so careful, especially at the beginning, so careful. You know, it's precious to us, like all these little movements that we make. And a lot of times that could be a plus, right? That could be part of this process. Like Doobie the cat here, he paints these beautiful paintings. I'm trying to get him to share his paintings too. They look like they're old master paintings. You know, it's like egg tempera with, you know, the brush isn't involved. Like you don't see the brush involved in it, and they're gorgeous. And that's a careful thing, a careful movement through the painting. Much different than how I'm painting right now, where there's a careful idea of like, you know, me thinking about that brushstroke, where it needs to start, where it needs to end, moving through it in that aspect, but also trying to get it all in one. So I guess what I'm saying there is like, you can move through it very carefully. You don't have to be, you know, trying to do what I'm doing like very expressively unless you really want to. And it's a tool. We train it like we would train anything else. Training that fear. We just went bowling yesterday. And you know, there's a ton of people there, right? And you're like, everybody's looking at me. Nobody's really looking at you. You know, you go to bowl and it goes horrible. You know, and I'm like shaking because, you know, there's a lot of nerves involved in that because you're performing in front of, you know, your friends and everyone else. But then by the second game, you know, the beginning of the second game, I'm like, whatever. And we're having fun and we're, you know, because we suck at bowling, and that's what I like when I suck at bowling, because it's more fun that way. I find, we're just doing fun stuff with it. We've got over that craziness, that nervousness, and we're putting it down quickly, fun. And looking back at what we've done before and going, yeah, I've done something like this before. I can do it again. I think is always helpful. Yeah, I'm thinking about the drawing on the Let Go painting with the expressive brushwork. And the drawing wasn't exact. I lost a lot of that exactness, but it was one of these things where it's not so inexact that it became... It got to a point where it looked off, like, oh, that did not look like a well-formed hand. So I lost some of the exactness of the drawing, but it still looked like a well-formed hand, I like this warmth up in here, and I want to capture that a little bit more. There's this like keystone shape right above the nose, and right in the middle of the brow. That's really beautiful shape. Cookie Monster, the palette looks great in terms of color. Thank you. How is the paper holding when you scrape off paint? Oh, it does really well. Like I can, well, with these palette knives, there's very smooth edges. I have the the Phoenix ones, which have very scratchy edges. But yeah, I can bear down pretty hard on this, and I'm not pulling up any paint. And even with the PVA pulling up any of the paper, but with the PVA sizing, I think it helps to bind all those fibers together and make it a little bit stronger. It kind of feels like a little bit plasticky, like different than paper. Like my finger wants to kind of stop on it a little bit like plastic because of the PVA size. It's like the Yupo paper, which is pretty similar in some ways to the PVA size it's coated on here. It's so thin, such a thin paper, but because it's a plastic, I mean, you can look at advertisements for Yupo paper. You can't tear it with your bare hand. Like, it is super strong, and I've scraped the crap out of it with a palette knife, and I'm not pulling up any of that Yupo paper. Very sturdy. Fun to paint on, but I think an indirect method is best with Yupo paper, honestly. Because you pull up paint, it's so non-absorbent that if you try to paint strokes over paint that's already down, you end up pulling up a lot of that paint. And so, like, reworking your shadows is very difficult with Yupo paper. I love how deeply intense red it gets within the socket there. You guys probably notice what I'm ignoring completely on this painting. I'm ignoring the glasses, not even looking at the glasses right now. And that could be good or very bad. Love that little bit. So I need to think about the lighter areas of these glasses, the very bright areas, and maybe scrape into the painting to pull those back out. We'll see. Chris comment. Hold on 1 second. I think I missed a comment. I'll be here locking my door. Maybe the grandkids are over. Going to be running in like my cats do. And Chris asks, should I cut canvas paper or cold press paper, not hot press paper, or gesso or coatings here, man? It's a lot of questions in one. Okay. Should I cut canvas paper or cold press paper? Not hot press paper, or gesso or coatings? Yes, that's the answer to those questions. You're like, that is not helpful. Not helpful. Okay. Let's think about what each of those are going to do. Okay. Canvas paper has a texture to it. It has lines, horizontal and vertical lines on it. That's, the properties of that paper. And if you don't want, like in your painting, if you don't want those horizontal and vertical lines to show through your paint, let's say you paint really thick paint, you're like really impasto, like you chunk it on. It really doesn't matter what the texture of the paper is like. If you chunk that paint on, it's going to obliterate any texture that's on your paper or canvas or whatever right away. I want that lighter, definitely. So it's not a big deal. Now, if you are like me and, I don't paint very thick. I would like to get to a point where I paint thicker, like with more impasto everywhere, but I don't. So the texture of the paper is going to show. It can, in some instances, override the texture of the brushes, these like really interesting brush strokes that come through here, like the kind of scraping of the brush across the paper in some places, or you see the hairs kind of separate on the brush in some locations. I want that. I want to see that, and I don't want the texture of my paper or whatever to show that. So that's the choice of it. Okay, that's why I'm choosing very soft paper. Okay. Now, if you're, I'm going to look back at the comment again. If you're on cold press watercolor paper, it's going to be a different texture. It's going to be more kind of like a skin kind of texture. Oof, that just sounded terrible. It's not lines, but it's more like bubbles. Oh, geez. Went into the wrong thing. Actually, that's probably helpful. So it's going to be a little bit different texture, and maybe you want that. Maybe you want some of that to show through. But if you paint very lightly like I do, you probably want to do some kind of coating on that paper to remove that texture. Okay. Let me get the angle of that finger. It's coming out this way. You probably want to remove that texture by put like a coating of gesso on it, a PVA, not a PVA size, because that's not thick enough where you can sand it down. But a coat of gesso and then sand, a coat of gesso, then sand, a coat of gesso, then sand to get it really smooth, or to smooth it out a lot. But it really depends on how you paint and what do you want it to see. I would say try, and this is why I said yes at the beginning, try all of it. Really begin to understand, how the texture of your surface is going to affect your painting process. And then develop this understanding of like, I like this or I don't like this, right? That's why I say, yes, try it all. Now with paper, okay, unless you have a oil painting paper, like Arches and Stonehenge both make really good oil painting paper. Do not get the Canson version. I do not like the Canson version of oil paper. Unless you get the oil paper, all other paper you need to coat with something, and you want to keep the layer of oil paint off of that paper. You want to have a barrier between oil paint and the paper. Okay. Same thing with canvas. It's why canvas is always coated with gesso or something, because oil paint will eat through your paper and canvas and wood. Well, wood is really bad in a million different ways because there's so many impurities in wood if you're painting on wood. So there has to be some kind of coat between your oil painting and the surface you're painting on. It will protect your painting so nothing leaches from your paper into the oil paint and nothing leaches from your oil paint into the paper. And you know what? This is an archival thing, so it'll help you keep things a bit archival for a lot longer. So instead of like 100 years, it'll last 200 years, right? Hopefully we're all healthy 100 years from now. That'd be great if we lived that long, wouldn't it? Maybe. I don't know. We'd have to live that long and be healthy in order for it to be good. That's the thing. I don't want to live that long if I can't move around, like connected to machines. And oh my God, that's a tangent. Let's stay away from that tangent. Okay. And then Omar, you ask, where is it at? Chris, how are we going to set it up next Sunday at this time? Are you talking about for your one-on-one or for the drawing class I'm doing? Oh, you're on Monday the 27th, Omar. Yeah. So one day after that. Actually, you're on there twice, Monday and Tuesday. But I don't have my mentorship calls set up on for Sundays. You're on there twice for Monday and Tuesday. So let me know which day you'd rather meet and we chat. I can meet any of those days. Cookie Monster says, that sounds like great paper. I often have problems with paper because it will start to ripple. The camera distorts it. Oh, what is the camera distort, Chris, while I answer Cookie Monster's comment? Yeah, the paper is going to kind of buckle a little bit. The thinner it is, the more it's going to buckle, okay, and kind of move around when you put anything on it. Make sure you coat both sides. Just put one coat on the back of whatever you're using, and then as many coats you want on the front. That will help keep everything from rippling too much. You can see that this paper still has a bit of that there. Yeah, that's too bright in the camera. There you go, that's closer. I want my best artworks to last at least 2,000 years. I want my best 2,000 years. Oh my gosh, I don't think there is any. Oh no, are there any paintings? Those cave paintings in France? I think that's the only thing that's lasted that long. But that's even older. And those are really interesting. We were communicating that long ago in paint or in pigment, rocks and colors. So cool. Intense red on these lips. Just beautiful. It's dark but intense here. I will definitely have to bump the intensity up there as I move along. I'm going to maybe try and put some intensity down and then resurface it later with other colors. Kind of planning ahead too on, within the painting as well. It's always nice. Okay, I see this area and I want it to look something like X, but I know that needs to dry before I can get to that. So let's prepare for after this is dry, Okay. Crap, no thanks on 100 years of chronic pain and migraines. I need knee replacement surgery too, and I'm 49. Yep, I feel you, Krista, especially the migraines. My God, terrible the past few days. Yeah, that's why I was saying, like, if we could live that long but not have all the ailments, that would be great. I would love that, If we're, 100 years old, but it's still like we're in our 20s, that would be fantastic. Let's do that. Not our brains. I don't want my brain to be like I was when I was 20. That nobody wants that. I want to have all the knowledge I have now. Like that Rod Stewart song. I'm really enjoying this, like right away. This really kind of careful movement through so careful that I can't even speak. There's really kind of careful movement with each brushstroke that I'm thinking about. There's a hopefulness within this as well, because I can foresee a lot of these initial strokes that I'm doing right now that could stay with throughout the entire painting. And with this kind of attention that we can bring, and there was some paint on that. With this attention that we can bring to each brushstroke we put down, there's a better possibility of this being, the first and the last of those brushstrokes, looking that expressive and being done. We talk about moving through a painting a bit faster in some ways, right? This is a really good way of moving through a painting very quickly. What if every brushstroke you put down was exactly where you wanted it, with the exact value and color and shape and edges all at the same time? If we just do, the minimum amount of brush work, and then it's good. We're done. That's like the fastest way that I found to move through a painting, getting it right the first time. Which never happens, right? We never, we can always try for that. Some of them go through pretty quickly, but it takes that attention where we're really focusing on, like this brushstroke here. I want it soft at the top. I want this one brushstroke to have softness on one side and then blend in down here at this side. So I'm starting with the corner of my brush, and I have to move up in this like kind of arc to get that to happen. It kind of did it. Kind of. Not really. Not really hitting it there. So, yeah. We can talk about the elusive one-stroke painting process. If you guys know Carol Marine, Carol Marine, Marine. I love her paintings because she does this very kind of arbitrary thing, but it's really cool when it comes out where it's not really arbitrary. Arbitrary is not the right word for that, but she'll say, I'm going to do this still life, and I have a limit of 30 brushstrokes. And so that, there's a lot of, what's the word for it? Minimalism within that. And like, it really gets you to focus on putting the brush stroke down once and gaining as much as you can from that one stroke, so it's done on the first try, which is so difficult to do. She'll do things where she'll have, like, in her brush, several different colors mixed up, and it will be like the shadow, the midtone, and the lighter side of like this stroke on the apple, and put it down once, and it's like, whoa, it went in the right place and it looks great. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That's a really fun way of, playing the game, right? A different way of thinking about things. I think it's a wonderful way of practicing the attention with every stroke that you put down. And of course, the paintings that come out are very impressionistic, right? There's an impression of things. It's not focused on exactness, but this impression that's happening, which is beautiful. Now, I want to get a smaller brush, or another brush. It doesn't have to be small. Let's get into this darker color here. I want to extend out the corner of this mouth a little bit. This is something that I do throughout my painting process, and is moving from shape to line, from expressive placement to exact placement, form to drawing. It's all the same thing. Where I throughout the painting, I'm thinking, okay, this needs to be moved over this way, that needs to be moved this way. So, and then in other places, I need this big stroke to just cover this whole area with a certain kind of shape at the beginning and another shape at the end. the softness in that stroke, like trying to get all the edges and color all in one in this kind of big area. But then other times I move through and I'm like, no, this drawing needs to be kind of tweaked a little bit. So let's get exact in there. You know, I've talked about it before. It's like breathing in, breathing out. You know, the whole clenching up the butt cheeks kind of thing. Oh my gosh, I'm, very exact marks, and you get really kind of tight, but you have to loosen up as well. That stress that we feel. And then breathe out. Oh, okay, this area, it's the background. I don't have to worry too much about it. Let's just throw down some interesting strokes and have fun with it. I love that, like how we can move through painting. Now, this is one of those clinching moments. You can see it over here, like that line from the glasses that is coming from the ear down the cheek, from side of the head to the front of the head. It's a beautifully, just gorgeous arc. Oh, I'm terrible at math, but this looks like something that mathematically would equal beautiful. Like some kind of cross cut of an ellipse that would make this beautiful shape. Yeah, that wasn't it. It was a bit too heavy-handed. Let's see how far we can get back. Oh, got stuck on something. Okay. Didn't get back as far as I wanted to on that one, but it's okay. It's okay. We're going to deal with it. Wish it wasn't there, but, I went for it. Failed on it a little bit. It's not too bad. What needs to change on it? It needs to be, I like that when I scraped it out, this line, it's a little bit lighter. It's got some air to it. It's open. So let's do it this way. Let's break it up into a couple strokes. I want this one to be a bit more non-open, a bit thicker. And I want this one up here to be a bit thicker as well. It's got that openness within inside of it. And I could probably clean that up with white next to it, like very pure white later on. And I have to be very careful with this line, super careful with that line. The one thing that I have learned by painting in a lot of paintings where I have this like direct light, this like very intense light versus the shadow, I have this tendency, I think I've seen it in several other artists, where we have this tendency to make the values of those shadows a little bit darker than they need to be. And it ends up looking like not a shadow that's cast, but like paint or something on the surface of the skin. And the only way that I've really been able to adjust that so it looks better is to keep the value of the shadow a lot lighter. And I want it thinner too, like it's very thin thing. I'll tell you what, as far as like scraping out exactly, Yupo paper is unmatched because it is so smooth. I still get some kind of starts and stops when I'm trying to scrape out this exactly. And I'm just going to do it again. There we go. That really kind of blended that area in a little bit, so it's a little bit less noticeable. Sharp, thin line, a lot lighter. Let's go a little bit into yellow, and I've killed my white. Need to get more white. Okay, I think that's grabbing the subtlety of it a little bit better. It's not there quite yet, but I'll get to it. I'll get to it. There's so much wonderful little moments in this whole painting that I can't wait to get to. So good. Okay. What I need to look at right now are the glasses. So this is going to be fun. I'm thinking gray, but not as dark as our darkest dark, which I've basically obliterated. It's gone. So I have to kind of find that again. They're right at the edge of these glasses where it's still on the frame where the arms of the glasses fold. It's always the thickest and always like grabs attention. If I can get that placement and that angle down right here, that's going to tell me and the viewer everything I need to know about these glasses. It's probably one of the most important kind of angle parts of the glasses themselves, I think. And then way out here, all the way on the edge of the paper, is the other corner. No, it's even farther out, definitely. I'm not too worried about the exactness back here because I have all this green stuff that I'll probably bring in. It'll be a very pastel, very light. I want to push all that back. I don't want the green back there to be noticeable at all. And I love how in the, you see how soft all this texture is back here with that green? You know, that the camera is doing that. There's trees back there, yeah, but it's just like this kind of soft thing. So I want to try and grab that when I get back there. Cookie says it already looks very interesting. Thank you. I'm kind of feeling the same way. I'm liking this a lot. And then as I say that, I get anxiety, a little bit of anxiety right away. I'm like, all right, it's looking pretty good so far. Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. You know, I find it very funny how our brains will always get in the way of things, right? Things are going well. Well, don't screw it up, your brain says. You know, in those instances, when I have this conversation with my brain is like, don't screw it up. I'm like, okay, that's not helpful. I appreciate you, brain. I'm glad you're there. But that thought is not helpful at all. No. So we're just going to not pay attention to that comment that you made. So go away, brain. Focus on how, where I'm at right now, or, how well it's going. That's what I need. And I can do it. I've done it before. I can continue. And if I make some bad strokes, it's okay. It's okay. I can mark them out. That's why I put 2 coats of PVA size on this paper, because I wanted to be able to scrape down to white. Is pretty close to white. Okay, that is not as intense as I want it, so I need to clean out my brush. Here's a lazy way of cleaning out your brushes, guys. Like, I want a very bright color that's really intense. I'm just going to get a chunk of white. It is not the best way of cleaning out a brush. So I just mix all of that into my brush and then right out in the paper towel. And now my brush has got more white in it than anything else. And I can get that intense kind of pinkish color that I want now, because I've overridden everything that was inside my brush. And that's the intense pink that I want. Of course, I'm using paint to kind of, quote unquote, clean my brush. Not a good idea. And that's why I say it's a lazy way. I mean, I have my little container over here, and it needed to be darker anyways. Darn it. I have my little container over here where I can just put it in safflower oil and wipe all that out in my paper towel real quick. But it's okay. Sometimes it's faster to do that, but sometimes it's not. I'm focusing on these glasses. Okay. It's glasses time. And there's so many amazing little tiny changes in not only the value, but the color, intensity, and temperature throughout these glasses. That plus the bottom side of the glasses is this perfect arc. It's like the hardest thing to draw. Ellipses in paintings. It's like so hard. especially when you're shaking. Oh my gosh. All right, they're not going to be perfect. It's going to be a little bit like edges, like a combination of straight lines, but small enough in combination that when I look at that, it feels like a nice curve. It's nice enough. It's one of these things where, we get so intensely caught up in exactness that a lot of times it can hurt the expressiveness of your painting. Like, oh, it has to be exactly like that. And then it would look better if we just kind of departed from that in a couple ways, Yeah, like that is not looking exactly like those glasses, but I don't mind it at all. I do want this line here to be right there, like the bottom end. And I love how there's values here that are so close. I shouldn't even put that line there. Just scrape it out. Just let the glasses lose themselves in the white. Beautiful. The more that I focus on this kind of combination or balance between expressiveness and accuracy, the more it helps me focus on everything I put down and really see like the just amazing beauty in all these little small moments around the painting. I'm going to have to adjust where I put those lines of the glasses because this is in a different place. No, it's not bad. It's not bad. Is that right? Does that look good? Yeah, that's not bad. It's not bad. Oh, and here's an angle. A lot of artists, digital artists and comic book creators, where they're working on like kind of a flatter surface and they're holding their paper, you'll see them like rotate the paper, rotate, the digital image that they're working on, because there's certain angles that, like if you're right-handed, your body just doesn't want to get into that position, and it's not easy to create a line in that position. But I am not rotating my canvas, my paper here. So I get my maul stick so I can, because that line there, trying to make it, putting my arm down on something, it's not going to work. Isn't that amazing? Like we're thinking about the physicality of our bodies and how that, what we can achieve with mark making, because physically my body does not move easily in this way. So I need to make some adjustments. Oh, that's so cool. It's like all these little bits of painting that we don't think about sometimes. I think it's impressive that you're already achieved such a good result so quickly. I know, I'm surprised at it too. I'm totally like, hey, this is looking really good. How did I do that? I think you need more yellow and red in the shadows above the eye. Yeah, I agree. That yellow red that's up there is so good. I love it. It's a little bit too purple right now. 100% agree with that. And I'm thinking maybe, I'm going to scrape it down up there as well, because I want some of that paper to come through when I put the yellow and like the more warm tones up here. I like that moment. I want to capture it. This is, I forget what you call that. There's a, right in the middle of our forehead here, right above the nose, there's like this keystone shape, and there's a particular name to it that I can never remember. It's a beautiful shape. We can simplify it into something like that. And, that was great. Just being able to scrape that down back into the drawing shape that I want. It's really set me up to go back in there a lot easier, I think. And I have my brush with a lot more orange in it. This is way too orange. Let's go over here with it. Just mix it within all this purple a little bit more. I feel yellow ochre needs to come in a bit more and some white. Yep. Yeah, yes. This might be a bit too much orange, but we'll see. Bigger strokes. Bigger idea there. No, this isn't too bad. Okay, it's better. It's definitely better. It's not totally there, but that's better. A lot of edges need to be cleaned up on a lot of this. Figured out. But before I get into that, we're going to have fun with the back of a brush. I love where the higher value areas of these glasses come in. Look how we can easily describe that with a brush. It's just drawing like the back of a brush. It's so much fun. Should I paint on canvas paper without any coatings because I have drawn in lightly the face and hands? Oh, do you use graphite? You probably use graphite or something like that. And if you're on canvas paper, if canvas paper is going to already have a coating on it, so it's already white, so you already have a protective layer over that. What you could do, a PVA size, which goes on clear, or a GAC 100, you can put over it to kind of protect, like separate the excuse me, I keep like burping, I'm sorry, to separate the graphite from the paint that will go over it, because sometimes that graphite will kind of mix in with the paint, but a lot of times it kind of mixes in, but doesn't. But I don't think so. I don't think you need it, you know? Yeah. I mean, like, if you wanted to, keep that process of drawing out in graphite first on your canvas paper and keeping that drawing with paint over it, look for the clear GAC 100 or PVA size. There's also some clear gesso out there too that you could kind of go over that with lightly so you don't smear all the graphite or whatever you use. If it's charcoal, definitely want to kind of coat it very lightly because that moves around a lot easier. But I would say try both. Like if you want to keep that method of drawing out, try with paint straight over, okay? Let me know if it's charcoal or graphite, because that's important, or what you drew out with. I mean, if it's like color pencil, that would be something different. But feeling the difference in each process, I think, would be a great learning opportunity, honestly. There's no wrong way. There's all these ways. Burb all you like, Chris. I'm not wearing headphones. Oh, that's good. That's going to be good. I don't know why. I haven't eaten much today. I think I've crossed that threshold in my age where you get to a point, because like my in-laws talk about this, get to a point where you're like, I don't need that much food. Hopefully, because I eat way too much. I have to exercise much more because of how much I eat. Oh, this is my stream, guys. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. It's going to be all over the place. And I like that. I like this connection. I like this. Sorry, doing a line. Ugh. I like this authenticity that I can get on a stream, because this is, I'm not trying to play a part or anything. Like it's just the raw person I am. I'll make some stupid comment all the time about something. I like that it's just the line. And our brain tends to connect everything else. I need this intensity over here. And I'm almost looking at these glasses and thinking, maybe not putting the background in, foregoing the green, just ignoring it altogether. Do I need it? Stress the importance of the white of the paper. It reminds me of I was there's a book. Okay, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's all about like sequential comics. I used to be deep into comic books and wanting to be a comic artist like years and years and years ago. So I have a little bit of insight in that, not much, but a little bit of insight into that whole thing. And I want to say like Scott McCloud wrote this book, sequential, something about sequential. And in one instance, the important part that I'm trying to think about is the book was talking about the importance of silence, the importance of nothing, and how in a lot of music, especially in Asian countries like Japan and things like that, where the silence, the space between notes was important. Like the focus within that. And if you look at a lot of Asian beautiful screen paintings, they have those beautiful screens that would stand up on rice paper, and they had these gorgeous, like simple paintings on them. A lot of it was all about the quiet aspect of negative space and how important that was to the overall composition and the silence within that. I just love that idea. I'm thinking about this silence over here, and this looks like a mess at that little point right there, but I think it might be okay. But I kind of like that silence. Ooh, I need to remind myself. Okay. Because, what was it? I showed you guys yesterday how I started planning this painting in my notes. Why am I painting this? Asking these questions. What part of your body, what if I take pictures and okay, I went through that. Like, why am I drawn to this image? It's blown out. I want to deal with extreme white and high contrast shapes, the saturation around the lips, the emotion, the connection. What do I want to communicate? Love, empathy, soft, caring, inner thought, private, emotion, introspection. I think the silence, when I'm thinking about the silence within all this negative space, it really feels like what introspection is. Silence. This idea where the painting doesn't have to spell out everything, and that maybe a big player, a big actor within this whole painting is the negative space and just leaving a lot of the white. I need to think about that, because what also popped in my head when I'm thinking this is, okay, am I just saying that so I don't have to do a lot of this painting? Like I can leave it a lot of it white? Am I just making that up to avoid being specific and describing things that need to be described? Or is it an actual necessity or actual like compositional choice that is going to improve the painting? It's a hard question to answer. Definitely. Nice, Chris. I've also learned a lot from Eastern wisdom regarding the negative form. Oh, yes. I wish I could recall all that I've forgotten, I think. It would be great. But yeah, I'm feeling this need to keep everything in the background white. To not describe it, to... Yeah, I'm thinking. Can you guys hear or smell the smoke? I'm thinking. I'm really thinking hard here. Now that I said that, you see what I'm doing? Less, 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 less. This is what I'm thinking. What can I get away with? How little can I put into this painting for it still to say, this is the end of this hand, right? That's the beginning of a shoulder. This is where the forehead stops and the background begins or might begin. Oof, I'm liking it. I'm liking. You know, this is a lot of silence, a lot of quietness, I think. Oh, this is great. I'm liking it so far. I want to get rid of all of this information up here. I want to keep some of this like right there for the end of the hair, maybe right up there. Now, it looks like I'm pulling it off down to nothing, but there is a very subtle, the very bright yellow that we put in there, there's a very subtle marking on the paper where it's soaked in a little bit. So there's that. It is still there. Graphite, Chris. Okay, yeah. Try and paint right over it. I think it'll be fine. And then on your next painting, because you definitely have a next painting in you, by that time, maybe you'll pick up a GAC 100 or a PVA sizing, right? And then see what it feels like after that coat is over the top of it. If you're on canvas paper, I would say GAC 100 instead of the PVA size. The PVA size works really well on paper, but I don't know. The GAC 100 is nice because it'll work well on paper or canvas or anything else. A little bit thicker. You can probably sand it too to smooth things out a bit more. So, yeah. Diluted transparent paint now? Maybe, Cookie. Maybe. That's a big decision on this. I do want some transparency in there. Like, it's a really good question because I'm thinking about here on the face, you know, there's this really sharp edge. I do want some variation in there. Some variation in those edges to speak more about, okay, this is the end of like cast shadow and it's sharp, and that's a cast shadow and it's sharp there, which would bring this angle down to there a bit. Let me chop off that. So that's sharp, but here on the cheek, like, I mean, softness would be, I think would be better here. So what's the best method for softening that out? Let's think about it. It could be my finger would probably be the best thing here, but I want to get this shape in that kind of curved form first. And then let's see how my finger does. You know, earlier I was complaining about getting paint on my fingers. I don't like it, but in service of the painting, I'll do it. I don't like it with the finger there. I don't like that. It's a different softness with your finger versus a brush. There's like a stuttering kind of, you know, hair thing that happens with your brush. It's very different than a finger. Sometimes the finger feels a little bit like when you put your finger through your paint, not your finger itself, but sometimes it feels a little bit too plasticky when I do that. Like it's smoothed a little bit too much. It reminds me of Gerhard Richter. So Gerhard Richter, I've talked about him before, where he does like these abstract paintings where he'll put paint down and then squeegee to the side and it'll blur the heck out of it, right? But he was also doing photorealism, but not photorealism like you would think, like where it's focusing on super, super exact painting so it looks, indistinguishable from a photograph. He was focusing more on photos that had more blur to them than anything. They had this already like camera quality to them, but we still saw it as, a photograph. And the idea, I think, that he was going in with that was like how when things get a little bit too exact and too perfect, they look less real. No. That value is not light enough. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but sometimes I look at digital things on the internet, right? And it's like a million billion pixels. And it looks fake. It just has so much detail to it. It just doesn't look like reality. But then I look at something that's a little bit blurred, a little bit flawed, and I'm like, yeah, that looks more real. That's what I feel like the difference between using my finger there and using the brush. Like the flaws in it feels a bit more real than if it was like tremendously exact. I don't know if you feel that, but it's like an obscure way of looking at technology. I think you could create an entirety of like body of work just thinking about how more real something looks when it's not exact. Like trees, I think they feel more real if they're generalized rather than trying to paint every single leaf. That could be just me. Okay, baby wet wipes. I'll have to get some of those. I need to put it on my to-do list because I can just say that and never do it. But if I say something like that, I usually do it. So I need to throw it onto my to-do list real quick. But I'm stuck in painting. Okay. Nope. Maybe using my finger here would look better though. I think so. It's so interesting how that changes. In one place it looks good, in the other place it doesn't. Okay, I'm gonna put this on my to-do list. Get baby wet wipes. Okay. I totally agree, but things on computer look about things looking fake, like AI images. It's so perfect it gets ugly in my opinion. Yes. I feel that about AI. It's awful. Absolutely terrible. Everything about it. It's just really doing nothing but hurting artists and other creators and removing a lot of our humanity. Oof. And killing the environment all at the same time. Yay. AI. It's made our job a little easier. Why can't I breathe? I have some strong opinions. Yeah, put it down, Krista. I'm getting baby wet wipes at some point. I'll do it, and then I'll review it. Do reviews on YouTube about baby wet wipes. It's kind of funny. I remember when I was first starting out painting, and I was following Richard Schmid a lot. Schmid, Schmid. There's no T in it. I believe in his book, he specifically pointed out a particular paper towel, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta get those paper towels." And I did, got those paper towels, and they were the best paper towels. They were so good. and I'm being sarcastic here. No, they weren't. They were just paper towels. But because Richard Schmidt used them, they are amazing. Now, that little bit up there, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Oh, God, I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Go away. I don't like it. Who is texting me? Okay, we're going back on Do Not Disturb. Oh, it is on. So that must be my wife texting me. I think I need to end the stream soon. My partner needs stuff. I like how it has like a bit of a fade to it out there. Like there's something up there, just like the end of the top of the head. Same here. If my finger's doing anything well, it's blending out these areas where there is staining of the paper and making them less noticeable. So it's just kind of like this hint of something. And now this darkness here is taking up way too much bandwidth, I think. Way too much bandwidth. Let's get rid of this side. Really bring it down. Ooh, I love how that stain, that color stained. That's really nice. It's there, but it's not there. Let's do it on this side too. I can always put it back. And, you know, we were talked about paper today and coatings and things like that. The only reason why I'm using PVA sizing on this paper because a lot of my previous paintings were directly on raw paper, okay? No coatings, not worried about it. But after I tried Yupo paper and I'm getting into this like transparency and scraping out and getting back to the whiteness of the paper. I used to paint on gray all the time. It really sent me down this other road of dealing with the surface and this transparency that can happen when you scrape away what the paint that was there. You get this kind of glow of the paint that, honestly, I don't think you can get in any other way. You know, it's like that's the exact difference between watercolor and oil. That kind of glow you get with the paper showing through. So I have to put that out there because we were talking about surfaces and coating surfaces. There's a reasoning behind it, like in the history, like we were talking about at the beginning, is pushing me in that direction. Okay, that's better. You see how I removed that darkness down here, that really dark value. It pushed everything interest back here into the head. I have a little bit of saturation and dark kind of sitting out here. I feel like I need maybe some more balance down here, maybe in this hand, balance that out a little bit more. With this little being done on here and thinking about the simplicity of this painting and the negative space and painting within the negatives being so important, every little thing is going to be very important. It's kind of like when, you know, I don't know anything about cooking, but on the shows, the cooking shows, if you watch the cooking shows, there was one that I watched and I gained this little bit of knowledge, but the hardest recipes to make, I've heard, are the ones that have the least amount of ingredients, right? It's because every ingredient is so important and it can change everything so tremendously that they have to be in perfect balance. And I feel the same here now because I'm thinking less. The balance has to be there. Yeah, a lot of that softness that I brought in was pretty good. I like that. Merk, I've actually learned a lot from AI. Yeah, there's different sides of this whole thing. I'm going to disagree with you completely. Here's what I'll say. Like, Midjourney version 1, I don't want to get too deep into this AI discussion, but Midjourney's out there. It's been out there for forever. But I remember V1 of that, and I was on that, and I was generating some stuff. And I did paintings based on AI-generated stuff. And it was cool. It was cool at the very beginning because it was like this alien came to our planet and was trying to understand humanity in this weird way, and it was so interesting. It was super detailed yet not, and it was kind of weird. It was different, and it was fantastic, and I loved it in its beginning stages. And of course, now you look at it, and it's just tropes and everything. But the coloration, which now has gotten worse, but there was a lot of color connections that was made within those very beginning images that honestly was really interesting. And a lot of them, I was looking at them for that contrast and that color and how it used color. And can I say I didn't learn anything from that? No, I did learn something from that. Now it's just a big generalization of humanity, and everything looks like a comic book cover or a Marvel movie poster or something like that. It's just ridiculous. And it's just a mismatch of what they call slop, in my opinion. Yeah, I have strong opinions on that. And then Krista says, everyone put your recommendation down. You mean we have to click the bell icon? The bell icon? Oh, like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications, that junk? Ugh. Cookie show. No, I was talking about the wipes. Oh, the recommendation for wipes. Oh, Dennis says it. Wow, it looks kind of like you're doing a watercolor painting on screen. Yes, you're right. It does look a lot like watercolor. Oh, crap. Do I have to go into watercolor now? Oh, no. I've always avoided watercolor, but you're right. I'm like, it's a very referential to watercolor. But I'm thinking about what I wrote down, what I want to communicate in this image, which is love, empathy, soft, caring, inner thought, private, emotion, introspection, and especially introspection. It feels like negative space. Like that feels more introspective than the weight of whatever I would put in the background. So I'm thinking less. But we'll see. I mean, I could probably add in a ton of stuff after, in tomorrow's session. But I think today was a really good session for this. Like, it's established everything I wanted almost right away. It definitely, all of this needs more finesse, more information, more exactness, more transitions, more focus on those little moments. And I can make it bigger. All those little moments within the eyes and the eyelashes kind of catching the light a little bit. It's just so beautiful. And I want to capture a lot of those little specific moments, especially around the nose and everything, how reflected light is going in there. I'll probably ignore the philtrum right above the lip, that space in between the lip and the nose. But there's so much beauty in those little moments. But I want to get more of that here in this area of the face. And that's probably what I'll do tomorrow, is I'll come right into the exactness of this eye and these shapes that come down here to indicate, okay, there's a sharp edge. And I want you guys to see this. See this sharp edge where it is a cast shadow, where the brow is casting the shadow here and it ends abruptly in this kind of like shape here. And then on this side, we have form shadow. Some cast, some form, and it softens out. That little moment is important. Right here at the top of the eyelid where it's really orange, and then into in between the tear duct and the nose, it's really blue. You see that? That little moment? Those little moments are gorgeous. I want to get into those little things. Like kind of fall within that, all that little detail, and kind of get lost for a little bit. And I think that will help bring this more as kind of a focus. Although the hands should, I mean, as far as the narrative, the hands are really important. I think specifically how they're touching the face, so important. So I need to think about that too. Yeah, it totally does look like watercolor. You're right. Your choice, Chris. Yeah. Like whatever brands. And I'll probably pick what's least expensive right now. Sorry, but if you start watercolor painting, I'm out of here. Right. I move to like something no one likes. Not a big fan of watercolor. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of watercolor only because I do not know it. I do not know watercolor at all. I have no idea about it. And there's a lot of watercolor artists here that are fantastic, that are near to me, and I would probably be able to get like supplies and all this other kind of stuff. But I know one thing with oil painting, I feel like, and there's been so many artists that have agreed with me, and I see that they do great stuff. We can go super cheap on materials, but for watercolor, every watercolorist I've talked to has said, no, you need to get like really good quality paints and quality brushes and quality paper, or else it's going to be like night and day difference. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to go into watercolor. That's not going to happen. I made a decision years and years ago. Figures, faces, as far as subject matter, is what I love and what I will always love. It's what I'm like born to do, is that as far as subject matter. And then oil paint. And my choice on oil paint was, you know, when you look at this vast history of oil paint and all these amazing artists that have done it, and how far they've taken it in their lifespan, and how far it still has to go with oil painting in many other lifespans. It's like, I don't want to take on, you know, more than just oil paint, graphite, and charcoal. Like that's a lifetime. That's multiple lifetimes of figuring out the ins and outs of everything. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect, Cookie Monster. Watercolor painting is a world in itself, just like oil painting. I want to stay in that world, and I want to dive into it and know not only the depth of it, but also the breadth of it as well. Try to know everything about it. Nick Alm, ALM, look at his work. He's not only an amazing oil painter, but also an amazing watercolorist. Like, how do you hold both of those at the same time? I don't get it. Yeah. It's a tough medium, and there are some good watercolor artists, but it just doesn't appeal to me. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I would have to like my whole setup would change. You can't paint watercolor vertically like this unless it's gouache, right? You know, everything's going to run straight down. Okay. Thank you guys for all the questions, all the comments, and the feedback and suggestions and everything. You've helped me be, you know, a better painter on this painting today. And it's, yeah. I love the connection here. Go to my website, chrisbevitt.com, right there. Yeah. And that's all I have to say. Check everything out. I'll see you here. Wait, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is Saturday. I always check now because, yeah, I'm open Saturday. So I will be here tomorrow on stream unless something else happens. Perhaps you think it's too watery. Ha! Funny. Color pencils. Oh, geez. Yeah, maybe it's that it's for sure. Good night, Chris. Good night, Vincent. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate you. Probably not oils. Bye, all. I totally agree to this. Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.